Good morning. My name is Fred Lange, and I'm the Director of the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers program here in Utah. We're one of actually 98 programs throughout the U.S. Many of the larger states have regional programs, therefore you end up with more than 50. Utah, being a smaller state, has a statewide office, and we have 7 locations from Logan all the way down to St. George. And so we're in Kaysville, Salt Lake City, Sandy, Orem, Cedar City, and St. George. We will hope that you learn more about PTAC and the opportunities that we focus on in helping you find, bid on, and win government contracts. Just some housekeeping details real quick. It goes without saying we'd appreciate if you'd put your cell phone or smartphone on silent mode or vibrate so that we don't have those going off while the speakers are giving us the information. I want to take this opportunity, and I'll probably do it more than once during the day, to thank our sponsors. Without the sponsors, we would have to charge a considerable higher fee to attend this event than we are right now. So our whole goal is to break even. We're able to do that through the generosity of our sponsors. And back of me is a sign. I think it's a little bit hard to read at the bottom, but American Express has been a gold sponsor for this event all 9 years. So we started this exactly 9 years ago, and they've been with us for the entire time. So we really appreciate them. We appreciate all of our sponsors. The other gold sponsor for this year is LSI Business Development, with whom we work closely and have a contract with to provide special assistance to our clients as they work on getting government bids and contracts. As silver sponsors this year, we have Goldman Sachs with their 10,000 small businesses, and you'll hear more about that at the last half of the buffet lunch that we're having later on this morning and early afternoon. The other 2 silver sponsors are Salt Lake Community Economic Development, or Salt Lake County. They provide this location for us at a reduced rate in order to help keep our costs down also. And then the Utah Media Group, which has just changed their name from Media One to the Utah Media Group, has been very generous with us with ads in the newspaper and so forth. So they're contributing at the silver level. And then last but not least, we couldn't do the program without Northrop Grumman, Utah Small Business Development Centers, L3, USDC, Utah Supplier Development Council, ATK, and the Salt Lake Community College, primarily the Miller campus. In addition, I want to direct your attention to the program that you should have picked up when you came in. Looks like this. You'll notice that this year there are 2 topics that have part 1 and part 2. There's no rule that says you have to go to both. If you decide that one or the other looks good to you and you have another choice you want to make out of the 8 offerings that we have for the 2 breakout sessions, you certainly have the ability to make that choice yourself. But there are two parts of the breakout sessions that have 2 parts. We also want to pass the word along. Many of you, especially our clients or clients that are working to become clients, have been asked and have been requested to fulfill a new requirement that the Department of Defense, through the Defense Logistics Agency, where we get our grant money to do the program, which is then matched by the Governor's Office of Economic Development as approved by the legislature. The new requirement is that we have to actually get a signed statement that says, yes, I or my company named XYZ wants to be a client of PTAC. So it's pretty, there's no commitments that are made there. You're just telling us that we can keep on file that it's your choice to be a client. We have a year to do that in. I probably shouldn't tell you that. But for those of you that may not have already taken care of that, we do have some of the forms here. It's a one-page front back. There's very little information that we need. But we do have to have this at some point in time to continue certification with our funding partner on the federal level. There will be a survey that will be passed out that we'd also ask you to sign and give us some suggestions or feedback about what you saw today and what you'd like to see in the future. Now, before I introduce our Executive Director of the Governor's Office of Economic Development, I want to say to you that GOED has been extremely supportive of this event for the full 9 years that we've done it. And we couldn't do the things that we've done at the budget we have without GOED. And also without a team, a committee that is made up of many of our partners in service to the small businesses. For those of you who are partners and on our committee, would you please stand just for a minute so we can see where you are? Don't be shy. I've seen half a dozen of you already. Okay. At 11 o'clock, you will be treated to a buffet lunch, which will be at the rear where the continental breakfast was. We encourage you to come in and get your food and proceed eating. And we will have the governor speak somewhere between 11 and 11:30. So it would be good for you to be here on time at 11 and have your food and seated as quickly as possible. At this time, then, I would like to turn your attention to the new Executive Director of the Governor's Office of Economic Development. This position was just announced and was appointed to Val Hale, who is also, as a result of being the Executive Director, a part of the Governor's Cabinet. So he heads up GOED, and PTAC is one of the programs that GOED offers to the state. He came to us most recently from the Utah Valley Chamber of Commerce, where he was the president and CEO, and was involved in economic development and business community development. He, before that, was with the university, or Utah Valley University, and preceding that, Utah Valley State College, in a number of roles, including vice president for university relations, where he became involved in legislative affairs, marketing, public media, and so forth. He was also a vice president for advancement at USU, where he was involved with fundraising, the external activities that the university became involved in, and played a major role in the conversion from UVSC to UVU. Prior to that, most of you can remember that Val was in the athletic department, the AD, and was the athletic director starting in '99, and did a lot of work building the program for athletes at the Y, in addition to some of the facilities like the Miller Park and indoor practice area and other things like that. So I would like to now introduce to you the Executive Director of GOED, Val Hale.
Thank you, Fred. On behalf of Governor Herbert, who will be here a little later, and of course the Governor's Office of Economic Development, I welcome you today. I hope this will be very productive and beneficial, informative for you today, and that it will lead to many future contracts and opportunities. I just am going to take a moment and congratulate Fred and Chuck and the PTAC gang throughout the state, all of our wonderful people who are throughout the state. They just finished a record year for PTAC. This last year, approximately, well, over $700 million of contracts were secured through, and that's that we know about. There are probably others we don't know about, but that's a significant amount of money and a significant amount of business that came to our state. And so we're thrilled to see this PTAC program and what it's doing for our businesses in the community. I'm always amazed, since I've been in this role now for about 2.5 months, at the quality of people who are working throughout the state in a lot of these areas. Amazing people. And I'm also amazed at what is happening in our state. Last night I spent a few minutes with the publisher of the Daily Herald in Provo, and he's just come to Utah from Illinois. And he said to me, Val, I wonder if people around here have a clue how good we have it economically compared to the rest of the country. He said, sometimes I wish that some of these people who complain about this or that would just go live somewhere else for a few months and see what it's like in the rest of the country and much of the world. He said, we are so fortunate here. 3.5% unemployment, job growth that is about the same. We are the envy of the nation right now economically. I got a call about a week ago from a reporter for the Denver Post, and he said to me, what is going on in Utah? In our gubernatorial race here, in the debates, they talk more about Utah than they do Colorado. He said, it's amazing. They're talking about what's going on in Utah and how come Utah is doing so well. And we have become kind of the model state out there. I noticed in the paper this week that New Mexico is looking to copy our corporate incentive program that we have. Idaho copied it almost word for word last year as they looked around and determined that ours was kind of the gold standard corporate incentive program, and now New Mexico is looking to do the same thing. So we've been out in the forefront. We've been leading the way thanks to the governor's leadership and his laser focus on the economy over the last few years. And we really have it well here. We have it good, and we need to make sure we continue going and that we stay at the top. It's so easy once you're at the top to become complacent or to just assume that you're going to always be there, to continue in the status quo, and the next thing you know, instead of being number 1, we'll be number 10 or 15 or whatever. So we've got to really work hard, be creative, continue to do the fundamentals, the basics that we've been doing in our state, to keep business-friendly regulation, to continue to educate our workforce, which is our number 1 challenge right now, finding enough qualified workers for our companies. And we can stay at the top. And I'll go so far as to say we will stay at the top if we continue to have great support from industry, from our private sector businesses and our public sector businesses. So congratulations on being here today. Good luck to you. I hope it's a very, very profitable day for you. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to introduce you now to the Deputy Director that works directly under me, and he's been with me almost from the very first day that I started this job back in 2005 in February. He is going to introduce one of our featured speakers who will speak to us in just a moment. after which we'll be doing our first session with the networking at the Reverse Trade Show. Just as a point of interest, when we say reverse, we mean that the buyers are inside the booth, not the sellers. So large prime contractors and large government agencies are manning booths that we have provided around the room, and use a small business or mid-sized business have the opportunity of networking and talking to and sharing business cards and your strengths and your products and your services, so that you have a chance to possibly walk away with some contacts that you can follow up on in the future. So that will take place at 9. I'm going to turn the time over now to Chuck Spence, Deputy Director of the PTAC program in Utah. I also should mention we're very proud of the fact that Chuck is the President-elect and soon to be the President of our National Association of Procurement Technical Assistance Resources. We have a national group that meets twice a year for training, and Chuck has been the President-elect this past year and becomes President after our meeting in Washington, D.C. next month. Chuck.
Thank you, Fred. It's my honor to introduce Josh Frank to you, our featured speaker. I first met Josh last year when I attended the National Veterans Business Conference in St. Louis, and I attended Josh's, not knowing who he was, I attended his session, and as soon as it was over, I said to myself, we got to get Josh to Salt Lake City to speak to the PTAC folks. So to give you an idea of how popular he was, it took me 15 minutes standing in line after his session just to get his business card. And I think you'll find out here in a few minutes why. Josh Frank is a leading authority on government sales and speaks nationally on small business acceleration. He specializes in the implementation of techniques and strategies required to win small business government contracts. As I just mentioned, his seminars are often rated as one of the strongest sessions at conferences, and you're about to find out why. Josh is the author of a book entitled The Government Sales Manual, one of the most comprehensive resources on the market for government sales. Josh also serves on the board of directors for the St. Louis Veterans Business Resource Center. An avid outdoor enthusiast and Boy Scout leader, Josh lives in St. Louis with his wife, daughter, and son. He is a former intelligence officer and is a graduate of the University of Missouri. Josh holds 2 master's degrees, one in Management Information Systems and another an MBA. Would you please give a warm welcome to Mr. Josh. Josh?
Good morning. First, I'd like to thank Governor Herbert, Val Hale, Teresa Foxley, Fred and Chuck for inviting me here today. I love speaking. I'm very passionate about speaking with small business owners. One of the challenges that most small businesses face is that they educate themselves, and there's a ton of information out there on getting educated. Books, webinars, conferences, trade shows, mentors, colleagues, goes on and on. The greatest challenge that small businesses have is how do you apply what you know? How do you apply what you've learned? Today, we're going to go through several techniques and strategies that will help you, that will accelerate into the federal market. Because the average company can take 3 to 5 years to educate, figure out how this whole government piece works, and then win that first contract. So, a couple of expectations. We're going to have some basic information this morning. We're going to have some advanced. It's a lot of information in 45 minutes. It's a ton of information. If you're taking notes and you don't get it all, that's okay. At the end of the session, you can download this presentation and a whole bunch of other stuff, all free, no catch. And every single one of the slides has that URL and code. PTAC WIN, all capital. If you have questions, I will be walking the halls for several hours, so just track me down and we can chat. We're going to talk the budget, talk about small business challenge, talk about propensity. Who buys what you sell? How often do they buy it? How much do they buy? And then we'll talk some teaming, techniques and strategies. Let's start with the budget. In 2014, obviously, we're already into FY15 as of October 1st, even with all the discussion about budget cuts. And yes, we're under a continuing resolution, so we're still funded at FY14 levels. But the proposed budget is higher than it was in FY14. If you look at the federal spending and look at 15, you got total appropriations, $1.2 trillion. You got your mandatory programs, your entitlement, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, 3.6. You've heard about sequestration. Some of your colleagues may have said, sequestration, all these budget cuts. Federal government is not the place to be. Well, they're wrong. At 23% of statutory goals, do you see what that number is? $250 billion for small business. And if you remove the entitlement programs, you're still sitting at almost $32 billion. So what does that mean? There is plenty of funding out there for small business. The small business regulations are the most advantageous they've been in years. When I say years, like 20 years. The competition requirements, I've got GSA e-buy. Just show of hands. How many of you have a GSA schedule? All right, there's a handful. Real quick, let me sidebar for a minute. GSA schedules. There are 600,000 companies registered to do business with the government. That's System for Award Management, SAM. I know because I called their help desk 2 weeks ago to verify the number. Of 600,000, 4% have GSA schedules. Less than 4%. Now, what does that mean? That means you don't necessarily have to have a schedule to sell to the government. It depends what you sell, and it depends on how you sell it. And there has to be some research that goes into it. And you don't spend the time, the money, or the resources getting a GSA schedule simply because a consultant tells you to get it, a colleague, a mentor. There's some serious research that goes into it. On the small business regulations, if you have a schedule, GSA e-buy, it's a bidding system. You can only access it if you have a schedule. It just changed in the last 24 months. If they only receive one bid, they can sole source it to you. That's new. So if you're the only company that were to respond back to that RFP, contracting officer can give it to you. They don't have to get 2 or 3 other bids. So across the board, competition requirements, they are more in your favor today than they have been in the last 20 years. Budget cuts, sequestration. It is only a big deal if you don't understand what's happening in the market. And finally, companies that educate themselves and perform the right activities. Companies that learn how to apply what they've learned will win the contracts. So how should you focus? Let's talk some of the common challenges first. How do you identify who buys what you sell, and how do you contact them? It's one of the most common challenges. You could be a small, you could be a large business. This is sort of like basic capture management, basic business development, sales, prospecting, etc. Not every prospect is qualified to be a customer. The third one, bidding without information or intelligence. We're going to really talk about this extensively through the rest of my session, because if you are only going into FedBizOps or whatever system you may use and you're bidding on stuff and you have never spoken to the government, chances are you're losing. Okay? And I'm going to give you some techniques and strategies on how to resolve that. Bidding without knowing the customer. Government's no different than commercial. You've got to introduce yourself, you have to build relationships. And at first, for a lot of small companies, it seems very daunting. I don't even know who to, I mean, the government is Fortune 1. It's the largest corporation on the planet. How do I even start? And we'll talk about that today. Bidding without knowing the competition. I'll show you a system today, if you're not familiar with it already. You can quickly identify who all your competition is. That last one is very tongue-in-cheek. Small businesses, RSM Federal, we're a small business. Don't believe your own press releases. I say it tongue-in-cheek because there are a lot of companies that start getting too big for their britches. And they think, well, gee, you know, I've been in the papers, they've done articles on me. That's great, but that's not cash flow. So you gotta just stay grounded until you really get your business off the ground. This is another key piece. You've got to understand these opportunities. You can't just bid on them. You've got to understand them. You could replace the word government with corporation. The client does not want you to sell to them. They want to buy something when they need it and when you've proven the value. Hands down, if I ask you what you do, if I'm talking to you today and I say, so what do you do? And all you do is talk to me about the features and the benefits of your products and services, well, you're like most companies. But you're not telling me the value of what it is you do. And we've all heard this, right? We've all been to training classes and sessions. You've got to make sure that you're communicating the value of what it is you sell. Relationship management, get in the gossip chain. We'll talk about how you get in that gossip chain through association, some other pieces. 80% of businesses, probably 80% of you, hopefully I'm wrong, you're focusing on unqualified opportunities. You see the opportunity and you go, wow, this is right up my lane. I can sell this. That's my product. That's my service. I feel I can differentiate. I feel like I have competitive advantage. But it's unqualified. You have no idea other than what you're reading in the paper. You got to talk to them. You got to get on the phone. This is where most of us focus. Most of us focus on when the RFP is released. The average company spends 80% of their time doing that. 5% meeting with prospects, and then you've got the other 5% for RFI, sources sought, and 10% teaming. This is simply natural. You're introduced to FedBizOps. You're introduced to a bid matching system, right? PTAC's got a good one. And you're looking at it, and what do? You start going, all right, well, I need to write something up, I need to give it a price, and I need to go ahead and submit it. That's not enough. And you won't win a lot of contracts doing it that way. That's where you should be focused. 80% of your time should be positioning within the market. You've heard it before, but you've got to actually create a strategy that requires you to do it. And then you've got 5% RFI, sources sought, 10% teaming, and only 5% of your time should be focused on that RFP. And oh, by the way, for all the opportunities that you really want to win, you should know about that opportunity long before it hits FedBizOps or any system. For those of you who are new, real quick, because I'll use this phrase several times. Acquisition phase, pre-acquisition phase. Pre-acquisition primarily is your RFIs, your sources sought. They are actually different, but for the most part the government uses them for the same purpose. They want to figure out, is there a small business? Maybe it's 8A, maybe it's woman-owned, veteran-owned, service-disabled, maybe it's hub-zone. Is there a small business that can do this requirement? If you don't respond back, don't assume other small businesses are, because if that contractor doesn't get any responses from small business to those RFIs and sources sought, they release it full and open. They've done their job. That's the purpose of RFI sources sought. So if you see one and you go, oh, I'm really busy, I want to go after that opportunity when the RFP comes out, but I'm just too busy to do a sources sought response, you should have a template. Once you do one, have a template, send it in. It takes you 10, 15 minutes for the basics. And that way you're letting that contracting officer know, don't you dare release this as full and open. I'm telling you, I'm a small business. I'm telling you I'm woman-owned or 8A or veteran. You need to release it small business. RFQ, RFP. Primary difference, RFQ, they know what their vision is, give them a price. It's more simple. RFP, they need a process. Explain to them how you're going to provide that service. The other key point that I want to put into this is you're all going to have questions about an opportunity. When you have a question, if you are in the pre-acquisition phase, that contracting officer is not obligated to share your question with the other companies, nor his answer that he's giving to you with other companies. But if that RFP or RFQ drops and you ask that question, he's obligated to share your question and the answer he gave you to every other company that is going after this opportunity. That means, because what do a lot of us do? Well, oh, this is a great opportunity. We have this past performance. Maybe this strategy could really differentiate us and give us that competitive advantage. Let's ask the contracting officer to ask the program manager and see if, in fact, that's going to make us really competitive. What did you just do, though? If it's after the RFP and RFQ's out, your competition knows exactly what you're trying to do on strategy. They're going to include it in their proposal, and you've just lost out that competitive piece. So make sure you know where in your acquisition phase you're asking your questions. This one opens a lot of eyes and jaws drop on the table. FedBizOps is 10% of all the opportunities. I'm not even talking DIBS, the DLA system for all the products. I'm not talking other systems that the government uses. Yes, in general, it's the single point of entry to the government, anything over 25K. But only 10% of the government's opportunities are in FedBizOps. 10%. 5% are in acquisition. Those are all the RFPs, RFQs. So when you go into FedBizOps today, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing that 5%. You've got another 5% RFI sources sought. What's the point here? Most of the opportunities for your company are not on FedBizOps. They're not on any system. The government knows they need your solutions. Maybe they don't. This is why building relationships is so important. Because by the time it hits FedBizOps, you'll hear the number. A lot of people say, well, gee, 70%, 60% of opportunities are already wired for another company. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's fairly high. And why? Because if you haven't spoken to that government agency, somebody has. Whether you sell screws, bolts, garden hoses, technology, landscaping for national cemeteries, whatever it may be, somebody, some organization or company has spoken to that contracting officer and that program manager. They know something you don't. That's why you got to talk to the government. So, let's talk about who buys what you sell. There are two pieces to this that I'm going to go through this morning. It's all about propensity. So anytime I talk about who buys what you sell, it's propensity. 14 is not out yet. This is what's reported by the SBA. And you can see between 12 and 13 that small business goals, agencies, 79% were hitting their goals. 8A dropped. That's a very serious drop for 8A, for the minority. Woman-owned stayed exactly the same. HUBZone plummeted. Why did HUBZone plummet? Is there anybody here that is in a HUBZone that works? Okay. And you're actively still in a HUBZone. Okay. They would know this because they're focused on the HUBZone side. Everybody else probably wouldn't. But with the new census that came out, last couple of years, 40% of the HUBZones across the nation disappeared overnight. So if you're in a HUBZone, you actually have some serious competitive advantage if you're using your certification properly. And service disabled just continues to go up. So this is what it looks like. 14 is actually supposed to be better. This is what it looks like. Now, you can see which agencies are hitting their goals and which ones are not. Why is that important? Let's say Q4, July, August, September, right? Commercially, our Q3 is government's Q4. You have two opportunities. One of them is in the green, one of them is in the red. If everything else were equal, which one are you going to do if you only have the time, money, and resources to respond to one of them? Don't you want to know this? I will tell you the ones that are in the red, they're in the red because management said, we're really not focused on it. There are other things that we need to do. It is as simple as that. I don't care what the agencies say. You are either interested in hitting your goals or you're not. So if you're in the red, I definitely do a proposal that's one in the green. You know, if you look at small business set-asides, I want you to notice something. This is really important. DOD in 2011 was at about 20%. DOD in 2012 was at 20.4% of goal, of 23%. In 2013, they hit 24.8. Now, you got to take this with a grain of salt because that 2011 number of 19.8% is over $50 billion. So just because it's red, this is just something, you want to understand the market and understand how to apply all this content and data that's out there. So even though it's red, are you not going to target it because it's red? Well, not if there's, you will if there's $50 billion. 8A, 13, I'm really interested to see what happens in 14 on the 8A side because that's a massive drop. Look at all that red. Are there any service-disabled veteran-owned companies here? Good number. Are there any just veteran-owned? Okay. Just to make sure, for the veteran-owned piece, there is no federal mandate for veteran set-asides. Zero. It's just service-disabled. For those of you who are not veteran service-disabled, you should still be listening to this because if you're going after a contract and you need teaming partners and you have a choice between a veteran, service-disabled, put it this way, veteran, there's still informal goals in every agency, but if two companies and they're all equal, that service-disabled is going to have more, is going to count more with the contracting office because they can actually apply funding to their goals because you have a sub that's SDVOSB. Raise a hand. Be honest with me. How many of you know what FPDS, Federal Procurement Data System, is? Raise your hand. Outstanding. We have a whole room. This is consultants charge a fortune for something that's free. I mean, my company works with clients across the nation, And everybody's had consultants at some point in time, or advisors, or coaches, or whatever you want to call it, and they charge thousands and thousands of dollars. And you think you're getting a great deal, and what you don't realize is that it's free. Now, the Federal Procurement Data System, all government contracts above the micro purchase, I think over 3,000, 3,500, go into this system. It's not a perfect system. It's garbage in, garbage out. So it's only as strong as the contracting officer that's putting it into that system. There are two parts to it. 99% of the planet uses the easy search. If you want to know what contracts are being released under your NAICS code, who your competition is, which federal agencies are primarily buying what you sell, and how much they're buying, and how often they're buying, it's all in this system. Now, I was listening to, it was NPR, one of the news stations up in D.C. one day, and there was an organization that said, yes, it's fairly accurate. It's only off by about $1 trillion every year. It's a lot of money. However, it's the best system that we have. If you use usaspending.gov, there are 1,000+ bid matching systems out there. It's all just a GUI. It's a front end to it. Almost every single one that's using existing awarded contracts, that data is being pulled out of FPDS. Here's an example. A company has antimicrobial solutions. It's something that you don't have to wash it. You put it on and it automatically cleans the surface over and over again. And they wanted to break into the government market. And you can see, if you can't read it, it's okay. You can download the slides afterwards. It tells you all the departments, GSA, VA, Health and Human Services, EPA. These are all the contract actions. Ton of information. It's not very user-friendly, okay? You have to understand how to use it, and there's a cheat sheet out there. In fact, we have my company, it's free. It's on our website. It's under our blogs. We have a video of how to use FPDS. So, don't freak out if you're looking at this and go, well, it looks too complicated for me. It's not that hard. You can see here, as you're searching, whatever it is you sell, what's the key word for what, because these contracting officers are using whatever they think comes to mind. So antimicrobial, mildew, surface cleaner, E. coli, and you can see antimicrobial. Government uses that. How much money? Mold remediation actually is that's your number one. That's $88 million a year in those products. You can see the states, and don't see Utah in there for that product. And then you can see the top: Federal Acquisition Service, VA, Army, etc. You can get this for whatever it is you sell, product or service. Now, what I just showed you, 80, 100 fields of content, of data, this is the advanced ad hoc capability. If you've never used FPDS, don't go to it just yet, but you need to be aware it has 400, 500 additional fields that gives you a lot more on existing contracts. So make sure you understand FPDS and how to use it. Doesn't matter what you sell. If you're going into the government market, you've got to understand it. Okay, this is one of my favorite parts of the session. How do you prospect? There's about 20 different methods out there that companies use. You've been told to use them by various organizations, nonprofit, for-profit. Excuse me. Your colleagues have told you this is what you got to do. Your mentors, your advisors. You have weak ways of getting business, viable, very viable ways, and then obviously the strong. Here's the weak. If all you're doing is going into FedBiz Ops, that's weak. You're not going to win a lot of business doing it that way. The bid matching services. It's only weak if you're not doing the viable and the strong. If all you're doing is using a bid matching system and you're not using techniques and strategies to position for that opportunity, you're not going to win a lot of contracts. If the first time you see an opportunity is when the RFP or RFQ hits, you're not going to win a lot of opportunities. Some folks go, well, gee, you know, we saw a government job opening or we saw something on social media. Don't focus on those. That's not going to provide you with a lot of support. Government directories, the Yellow Book. I want to say Carol. There's several out there. Here's the problem. Most of them don't support small business. You're getting the name of the 3-star general. You're getting the name of the senior executive service, the SES 3 or 4. It's not the contracting officer. It is not the person in the small business side that you should be talking to. Okay? Those cost $4,000 to $8,000. Save your money. Don't do it. Top on the list, PTAC. That's why I'm here today. If you are not actively working with the PTAC, you need to probably start doing so. Strongly recommend. You know, what Fred said about, they've got now a sheet of paper where you got to, sign a line and fill it out. Make sure you do that. Small business office. Small business program office or the OSDBU, small disadvantaged. They are a microcosm of society, right? A lot of your mentors, colleagues will say, you got to go onto that military base. You got to go to that federal agency. You need to go into that small business office. Microcosm of society. Some are good and some are not. How do you know if the small business office that you go into is going to actually provide you with the value you need? Very simple. Do they influence the acquisition process? There is a former small business director at U.S. Transcom, Transportation Command at Scott Air Force Base, Michelle Mendez. Now, I haven't spoken to Michelle in probably 3 or 4 years, but when she was running the small business office for one of our large joint commands, the contracting officers brought the RFPs to her before they put it on the street and said, would you review? And if she looked at it and go, oh, no. You've got this for large companies. I know for a fact there are 4 small businesses that can do this. That contracting officer turns around, changes it, and makes it small business. Your question, it's hard, you can't go in and just say, hey, gee, do you influence? But you can ask, do you see the RFPs before they get released on FedBizOps? If the answer is no, it doesn't mean they provide no value. But in my opinion, if they don't influence the acquisition in support of your status, being a small business, they don't provide a lot of value. Okay? As much value as they need to. FPDS, I already talked about. Trade shows. When it comes to trade shows, not the symposiums like this. If you don't have a couple of meetings set up before you go to a conference, you're wasting your money. Period. Now, you may say to yourself, give you an example. The National Veterans Small Business Engagement Conference is in December in Atlanta. It's over 4,000 folks who are attending that. If you don't have a couple of meetings set up before you get there, you're wasting your money. Don't just go to a conference to educate yourself. That's what all companies do. Most companies will just go and attend. The problem is, a lot of those companies don't win government contracts. There's a lot more. You got to really take advantage of your cash flow. Myself, I've already got 4 meetings set up. They're not with the government. They're with partners that my company wants to team with in going after government contracts. So when I say meetings, it's not just the government. You've got your associations. Maybe you're engineer construction and you're with SAMI, military engineers. Maybe you're technology and you're AFCEA. Armed Forces Communication Electronic Association, whatever it is, join your association, because that's where a lot of your partners will come from. Now, this is where you're going to win your contracts. All the others are important. This is where you're going to accelerate, create repeatable processes, and recurring revenue. Number one, teaming partners. 90% of you will win your first couple of contracts as a subcontractor. You don't have a contract with the government. The prime does. But you will win several of your subcontracts and make money working for that prime. Personally, I don't care where the money's coming from. I don't care if I'm on the paperwork with the government or not. If I've got $2.5 million coming in, you can put Mickey Mouse on the line for all I care. Doesn't matter. Government meetings, it's no different than commercial. You're either talking to the government or you're not. If you're afraid to pick up the phone, you got to get over that. It's a common challenge with small business. I don't know who to call. I don't know what to say. You got to talk to them. RFI sources sought. They are your friend. If you're looking, first of all, FedBizOps, you can create a free account. And you can create these queries that sends you an email every day, or whatever bid matching system you use. So if you're using the PTAC system, have a query every day that says, excuse me, I just want to know the RFIs and sources sought that are coming in. Because it is the one area where you get to influence the acquisition. Do everything you can. Hey, I want it to be this. You have it listed as this NAICS code, North American Industrial Classification System code. You need to change it to this one. We think you have it wrong. You need to change your set-aside from, change it from large to small business set-aside. Tell the government what you want them to do. Don't just answer their questions. They may say, hey, we have these 5 questions. Do you have the capability to do this? Did you do it in the last 3 years? No matter what they ask, ghost, position, and say, you need to make it this next. You need to set it aside. We recommend that the past performance have X, Y, and Z. And X, Y, and Z is specific to what your company has already done. Because you're trying to bar entry to your competition. So the sources sought RFIs, absolutely critical. And if you can't remember how critical they are, make a note. FedBizOps. Make a daily query for my opportunities. So it reminds you every day you need to be looking at those. These are the core ones that feed into the strong. But at the end of the day, that is where you need to focus. I don't care if you're looking at forecasts or going to trade shows or using bid matching services. At the end of the day, you must be using all of those other prospecting methods to do 3 things. Teaming, the government meetings, and the RFI sources sought. It's proven. Time and again, 25 years. This is what it comes down to, from my experience. Business intelligence. We're going to start talking teaming here. I'm going to move on to another area. This triangle is an enigma for a lot of small companies. You have 3 corners. Your company, you've got your partners, you've got the government. What do most companies do? What do most of you probably do today? Most of you see the opportunity in FedBizOps, and you immediately call your colleague down the street. Or you call a company that you met at another conference, and you start teaming. The larger companies will go, that's great. You want to be on our team? That's outstanding. Well, I don't run that part. Michael runs that program down in the other office. And, I know he's already got the team put together or he's working on it, but, send me your capability statement and we'll look at it. If we're interested, blah, 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 blah. You're being pushed off, okay? You are like 100 other small companies that are approaching this larger company to be on their team, right? And you're doing this. You're pretty much begging. What value do you bring? Well, you know, our products are outstanding, and, you know, we're the best in the industry, and that's great. The other 99 companies said the exact same thing to them. How do you differentiate yourself and get on that team? Before you talk to your teaming partners, call the government. Little technique that I use, I'll get the contracting officer on the phone and say, and hopefully it's pre-acquisition, no RFP or RFQ yet, right? It's RFI, source of sought, or maybe before then. And I talk to the contracting officer, first words out of my mouth. You know, hey John, Josh Frank, RSM Federal. I got a question for you. I want to reiterate that or emphasize, this is not about an opportunity that is in acquisition. I can't tell you how important this is. Because most contracting officers, first of all the contracting officers that were baby boomers, they're all retiring. All right? So the contracting officer community is really, really slammed. They don't have a lot of time to be taking calls. The easiest way to get you off the phone, I'm sorry, I cannot talk to you about that opportunity. Click. It's that quick. The first thing that I say to a contracting officer when I get them on the phone, this is not about an opportunity that is in acquisition. I just stole his thunder. Okay? And then I quickly move on and say, I understand though that something is going to be coming up. This opportunity is going to be hitting the street, I don't know, 3, 6 months, whatever. But I also know that this requirement that you've had, it's been out there for 10 or 20 years. This issue didn't just appear overnight, or maybe you already have this product and service. Why now? Why do you need more at this juncture? Whatever response you get is outstanding. Because I'm going to take that answer, now I call the larger company. And I say to them, hey, this is Josh Frank with RSM Federal. I understand you're going to be going after this opportunity. Yes, we are, and I cut them off, and well, we've been talking with the contracting officer, and we've got some good information. We think it'll make the overall team competitive. Would you be interested in bringing us on your team? And what's the first question that's going to come out of their mouths? What did the contracting officer tell you? What's the largest mistake that small businesses make? They tell them, you just lost all your leverage. So don't give away anything that you learn. I don't care if it's a large company, small company, colleague, down the street in another company. You hold that information until you have a signed teaming agreement. Okay, these are all the techniques and strategies. We talked about this 10%. And by the way, if we go back real quick, instead of them saying, well, Michael's working on it, etc., the gentleman you're talking to or the lady you're talking to says, hold on, I want to get Michael on the phone. We're going to do a three-way right now. And you are on the team. 90% of the time, if you simply make an easy call to the contracting officer, position properly, it's not in acquisition, what's driving the requirements now? I don't want to ask you a bunch of competitive stuff that's going to give us an advantage. Of course it's going to give you an advantage, but you got to disarm it. 90% of the time, you'll get on that team. Whether you sell garden hoses, technology, doesn't matter. Call the contracting officer. This is why the 10%, if only 10% are FedBiz Ops, teaming with other companies will help eliminate you just being focused on that 10%. The first meeting you have with a larger company needs to be you bringing an opportunity to them. Period. It has to be an opportunity that they can't go after on their own. It has to be a small business set-aside. Okay? There is no stronger way to build a relationship. Now, This one, pay special attention to, because a lot of companies, small, won't do it. Even if you can do 100%, you see an opportunity and you say to yourself, not only can we do 100% of the work, not only do I know that we can differentiate and we have strong competitive advantage. In fact, I think we're going to win. I think we have an 80% shot at winning this opportunity. And you're really excited. You're thinking, oh, that's $500,000, or that's $3.5 million, whatever it may be. I urge you to call up a large company or another small company, preferably large, and say, we'd like to bring you on our team. We want some of your past performance to make us more competitive, to sort of lock in your win. We'll give you 20%. We'll give you 25% of the contract. Most small companies go, are you nuts? You want me to give away my cash flow? When I know I can do it, I have the people to do it, I have the product to do it. It's a chess game. It's a chessboard, folks. Because that large company, they're going to bring you on to probably 3 or 4 opportunities over the next 12 months. So let's say it's a $10 million contract, and I just gave away $2.5 million. This is what teaming is about. Because over the next 6-12 months, even though I gave up that $2.5 million, let's say they win 2 of those contracts, and it's $4 million in my pocket. That other company is now an extension of your sales arm. That's my point. You want to use other companies as part of your pipeline, and you can't do it unless you are building relationships. Guarantee of work. I need to run through this. I'm getting a little behind, but most small companies can't get a guarantee of work. So what you do is you say, instead of guaranteed money, say, we'd like to do this task area. Just this one task area. Yes, it translates to money, but it's one of the ways that you can talk to the larger companies. That teaming agreement, with a whole bunch of notes and how you position, it's free. You can download it after the session. Companies are going to look at you in 5 functional areas. This is how the big boys, the large companies, look at you. Doesn't matter what you sell. First, market acumen. Do you know the customer? Have you called the contracting officer? Have you spoken to the program manager, the buyer, the champion, whomever? Where are you located? Do you, is your location going to provide a competitive advantage for the overall team? Your back office, don't underestimate this, is just as important as what you sell. You must communicate that you have the ability to support the proposal effort and the contract. Your competencies they'll look at, quid pro quo, do you have the common interests? You notice that number 5 is your socioeconomic status. Small business, 8A, woman-owned, veteran. It's last because it is not important. If you are leading on your website and your marketing material with SBA, small business, or Hub Zone, or 8A, or woman-owned, don't lead with that. Put that down in your company area. That does not make you competitive, folks. What makes you competitive is what you do and how you do it. That's the icing on the cake. So never approach other companies and go, well, we're a woman-owned small business, or we're a Hub Zone small business, we're 8A, we're small business. No, we sell this, we do it very well. Half hour later, oh, we happen to be small business, we happen to be Hub Zone. Never differentiate. When you're talking to other folks, other companies, excuse me, they are, what do you do? How good are you at what you do? And most companies will say, well, you know, we are the best at this, and, you know, we're the best in the region, et cetera, et cetera. Make yourself equal first. And one of the great things that I use is it's very disarming. I'll look at you and go, you can look at the website, you know, it says we do 12 different things. The reality is we do 3 things really well. Now, which 3 am I picking? I'm picking the 3 that are most important to that company that I'm talking to. Changes every time. Every time I'm talking to another potential partner, the 3 things of the 12 that's listed on my website, they change to whatever I think will make me more competitive when I'm trying to partner with another company. How many of you have a capability statement? Raise your hand, please. Okay, good number. Don't pay a lot for marketing. You need 4 things: website, capability statement, business card, and introduction, capability statement for your teaming partners. We won't go through that today, but in general, that 1 page should be linked on your website. If you want that template, there are a lot of consultants that charge for this, folks. There are a lot of consultants around the country who go, well, for $25, we'll give you a format. And there's a different one for your partners, and there's a different one for the government, and there's a different one for this. You need one. It needs to be strong. You can download the template afterwards. Again, totally free. Quick case study. Partner case study. I was working for a company, this is years back, called Newberry, and I approached IBM, and I said, we want to partner with you on this. We have some good past performance. Are you interested? He said, yes. I said, we need a teaming agreement, and we already know there are 6 task orders that are going to come out. So we've won the contract. IBM won the contract. And I made the hour drive to Scott Air Force Base to sit down with the retired admiral, and I said, Admiral, we know these 6 task orders, these 6 requirements are coming out for bid. We're going to help you with every single one of them. But I want no money from the first 4 if any of them are awarded to IBM. He goes, what? I said, I don't want any of that money. We'll help you red team, review the proposal. We'll go through the process. We will be an active supporting member of the team. But if the team wins, we want none of those. He goes, all right, what's the catch? I want number 5. Number 5 is right up our alley. It'd be $10 million to our company. None of the other companies on the team get that work. It's just us, just Newberry. He said, deal. 6 months go by. IBM bids on the first 4. They lose every single one. Now you can imagine they got 10 companies, including Newberry, on the team, and we're all just like, what is going on? Come on, IBM. You know, it's not just IBM, it's the whole team is just not being competitive enough. Number 5 came out, IBM won. The other 9 companies on the team start jumping up and down with glee. Yes! We're finally going to get some money out of this contract. And what does IBM tell them? We're sorry. It's going all to Newberry. What's the point of this? The point is, once you're on a team, those other companies are your competition. Yes, they're your partners. But you can be sure those other companies on that team are doing everything they can to ensure you make as little or nothing as possible. It's about technique and strategy. So what did we learn today? Who buys? How much? How often? Some of the systems. Do not spend your time. I mean, every day I spend 30 minutes in FedBiz Ops for my company. 30 minutes. That's it. The rest of my time is positioning in the market, working with clients, etc. Government prospecting, we looked at those 20, which ones you should use, really focus on. Teaming. Teaming is about intelligence, information. Going after opportunities is about the same. How do you position with a prime, etc. Now, as I close up, a couple of quick notes. First, everything I've told you about today, free. No catch, just totally free. It's part of what we're doing. Now, there is a new program. It does not launch until April, sometime in the spring of 2015. I have to check with the team, but it's the spring of 15. Until we formally launch, we're giving free members memberships to the 6 conferences that we're supporting this fall. Again, absolutely no catch. All the documents and templates you need to sell to the government, free. Just download them, okay? And there's a lot of other stuff. The only thing we're going to ask is that we're going to send surveys out, because that's how we're going to get the program ready, by having you all help us QA and test it. But the deal is you get everything for free, all right? So on that note, and by the way, that code expires 48 hours. We're doing that to protect our intellectual capital. So make sure you do 48 hours, within 48 hours. On that note, I want to thank everyone for this morning. And if you have any questions, I'll be in the hall for the next 2 to 3 hours. Thank you very much.
Here's a token of our appreciation, Joshua, for the presentation you made. We appreciate you being here, and I'm sure some of the people want to talk to you out in the hall and in the back of the room here. For the rest of you, the next 45 minutes, a little over 45 minutes, should be used to get acquainted with the people in the booth. Again, remember, it's a reverse trade show, so get your selling shoes on, get your business cards out, and go see these people that have been here and are here to get acquainted with you. And at 10 o'clock, you should be moving toward the first breakout session. You'll need to decide, after looking at the program, which one you want to attend. The room numbers are already in the program, and the rooms are on either side of where you registered. So we'll go ahead and go to the booth and the reverse trade show at this time. Thank you.